now? Anybody got anything? Anybody got any good consult stories you want to tell me about? What do you got, Dottie? What do you, or Loy? Is that Loy?
That's Nina.
Nina, what's up? What do you got?
Hi, Bart. Oh man, Loy was on fire yesterday.
Was she?
Oh my God, this smoke was coming out of her red hair. She was so good.
She was in her mode. Just steamrolling people. Steamrolling. Right. That's awesome. You had a bunch of consultations yesterday?
We had 2.
Okay.
Guess how many we closed?
2. 2 for 2.
2 for 2.
Hey, sometimes when you're having a good day and you're hot, and you're closing, you just wish you had more consults, and those are the days where, like, you guys know what I'm talking about. When you have good momentum going and you're hot that day, if you don't have a consultation, that's when you start picking up the phone and leaving messages and picking up the phone and trying to get people, that are quote unquote thinking about it or anything like that. You just want to talk to as many people as possible when you have good momentum going like that. Momentum is definitely a real thing when it comes to sales. Whether it's good or bad, there's definitely momentum there.
That's why we needed to send over to Natalie and Dora, because we don't know.
When you got something that's happening like that, you just stay on the phone. Anyone had any, has anyone done any of the, had anyone in there that wanted to negotiate as of late? Where you negotiated with them and you got a number out of them? Have any of you guys gotten to that point yet? Where you got them to give you the number first?
I have that going on today after this call, we're like the second consult, she's there because she wants the cheapest deal. So we shall see.
Cool.
Yes.
Cool. Anybody else? Anyone been able to get a number out of the patient when they ask you how much it costs? Have you guys been able to get them to give you a number?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Someone tell me how it went.
Or what you were expecting.
I can tell you about ours.
Tell me.
I had a patient bring in his mother, and he was apprehensive. He had a number in mind, and he told me his number, what it was X amount, and we were going to be more than that. But anyway, end of the day, they closed with us, so they're going to be coming in. They're going to bring in his mom for.
But was he asking you how much you charge, and then you got him to tell you what he wants to spend?
He just, through what he was saying, was giving off clues that money was definitely.
I'm gonna give you Junie's phone call here. She's calling. So I'll let it roll for you.
We have other consults after this at affordable dentures.
Yes.
And so I thought, oh, okay. This is all
I'm gonna Zoom.
about money. So
nice.
That's when I asked him, because he wasn't really paying attention. He wasn't present. So right away there were cues that he wasn't interested. He was just trying to go through the consults. And he's like, hey, we already had a couple consults. We're here today. Tomorrow we're going to affordable dentures. And I was like, all right, then let's talk. Like, what was your last consult number? What's the number they gave you? He gave me that number and I was like, oh, okay, well, all right, let's just practice. Let me get through this consult, and then, they ended up choosing us.
Awesome. It's really interesting to see when someone's saying, hey, how much you charge for all them 4? What do you charge for a hybrid? What do you charge for zirconia? All this stuff. And you turn it around on them to give you a number. If you've never done it before, the first time you do it, you're going to see like, wow, you're going to feel kind of everything shift there, and everything's going to shift in the negotiation because they're just really not expecting that. And when you get really good at it, they almost give you a number without thinking about it. And then you have a number from their mouth now. So you have an anchor to start negotiating from and building value, whether it's really low or it's mid or it's a high number, whatever they give you, it doesn't matter because you have something to start to build from. So you're not just throwing numbers out into thin air. Really, really important stage to get to, when you're negotiating with people. Anyone else have anything in regards to getting him to give you a number?
I had that the other day. He had some sticker shock. He goes to the university to get a lot of work done. And so he had a little sticker shock when we presented, the fees and stuff or what our arches would be. And so I'm like, what do you want? What were you thinking of spending? He threw a 15 out there. So I'm like, I go, oh, we can do something for 15 and stuff. Let me do some crunching here. And he ended up, I figured that's kind of like the low end of it. So then I went back and presented him a plan for 18.5 with just dentures and some minis on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. And he's in.
But he was all like, well, I'll get the extractions done at the U and maybe I'll come to you for this and what, and stuff. And I'm like, well, give me a number.
Yeah.
So,
what are you looking to spend?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Once they tell you that, they've committed to it. So if you get anywhere near it, if they say 15, I think anything under 20 is a slam dunk, and you might even be able to close up to 25, depending on, what they feel is the most important thing, but they're going to give you a number they have no problem spending at first, not their top number, a number that's easy for them, cool. That's awesome. Well, I wanted to talk to you guys. I mean, I saw the consultation that Becky did, that Veronica went through with you guys. And there were so many good things to talk about with that consultation. But I wanted to ask you, there was one thing that kind of stood out to me. I'm still seeing it on quite a few consults. How many of you guys are getting to the close and you still have like two options that you're kind of presenting simultaneously? Are you guys still kind of running into that quite a bit?
Yeah.
So you're presenting 2 or 3 different options at the close?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you think we're still getting to the point where we're closing and we still have 2 or 3 different options? Why don't we just have one option that we're closing on by the time we get to that point? Why do you think that is?
Like they sure a lot of times on what they want.
Door doesn't always lock. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's one critical piece of this, okay, that we're missing, and it can make the close more difficult, right? So one of the biggest things that we have to make sure is being done is that we're getting the patient to describe the treatment that we're going to present. We have to remember to do it. If we just find ourselves, quote unquote, educating in regards to, well, this is removable, and then these are a couple of our different fixed options, and you're kind of a candidate for all of them, and this is this, and this is this, and this is this. We're kind of leaving it to them to choose, but they're also thinking, well, how much is this, and this, and this, and this? And it almost puts you in a position where you have to present all of them and go through pricing on all of them. But obviously the risk there that we run is more of a complicated close. And we're giving the patient a lot to think about. And sometimes they'll need to take a day or 2 or a week to consider their quote unquote options. That's the problem with the options close. So we want to make sure, right, when we're in the first 10, and even when the doctor's in the second 10, that yes, we want to tell the patient, hey, it sounds to me like you're going to have multiple different options, all of which are going to put you in a much better situation than you're in. Okay, that's the good news. You're going to have multiple options, and every single one of them is way better than where you are. Okay, that's good. Now, which one is right for you really depends on what's most important to you. Okay, yes. So let's talk about that. Don't ask them which treatment they want. Ask them what's most important to you, right? In terms of function. And then describe function and get them to rate it on a scale 1 to 10. Aesthetics. Define what you mean by aesthetics, right? There's different levels of aesthetics. On a scale 1 to 10, just how your teeth look, natural looking, beautiful teeth. How important is that to you on a scale 1 to 10? Because there are options that are a 10. There's options that are a 7. There's options that are a 5 or a 6. All of ours are good. We don't even have anything that would be under, say, a 5, but there are different levels of aesthetics to choose from. How important is that to you, right? What about maintenance? How important is maintenance to you, or having something fixed versus removable? Have you thought about that one way or another? Teeth that come in and out, or teeth that are fixed? Get them to tell you all of these things, and then you don't have to make a guess in terms of what to recommend. You're just making the recommendation because that particular treatment best reflects what they told you was most important to them, because they can't tell you which one I want necessarily, but they can tell you how important function is, how important aesthetics are, how important maintenance is. They can tell you how important longevity is, right? Having something that's done once, it's done the right way. You don't really have to mess with it anymore. You know, give me an idea and I'll guide you to the treatment that kind of best fits what it is that you're looking for here. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you do it that way, then you're never kind of pitching something that's blind, and you're never making 3 pitches at once. It's hard, right? It would be like if you go to buy a car and the rep doesn't ask you any information. They just say, okay, say you're going to look at a Mercedes, and they say, okay, we have, you know, the S class, we have the E class and the C class, then we got our AMGs over here. Which one do you want? Right? Then what's going to happen? Then you're going to, well, what's the difference between all these? What's the difference between the S class and the AMG? What's the difference between the E class and the C class? What are the differences here? And he's going to have to go through every detail of every single one to allow you to make up your mind, instead of just asking you, hey, let me ask you, what kind of experience do you want with your car? What's most important to you? Do you want something that's super ultra luxury? Do you want something that's a better ride? Do you want something that's performance geared? Do you want something that's more of kind of like, you know, the best of all the worlds, but an economy play? Like, give me an idea what you're looking for here. Right? The big, soft riding, big luxury car where you can't feel a bump in the road. Or are you looking for something more stuck to the road that can handle really good? Give me an idea of what you want, and I'll kind of guide you from there. Because what you're trying to do is eliminate 2 or 3 options, right? So you can talk and focus in on whichever option you have the highest percentage of making a close on. Does that make sense? And we have to make sure the doctor knows that information, guys. That's why when you fill that form out after the first 10, that form, what does it have right on there? Function, aesthetics, maintenance scale, 1 to 10. Where is the patient? Urgency level scale, 1 to 10. Where is the patient? Did money come up? Yes. Here's their budget. No, money did not come up. If you have that information, if the doctor has it ahead of time, they use it to justify why they're making the recommendation they're making. Because what the doctors are going to say most of the time is that, hey, it looks like you've got enough bone. It looks like the bone density is good. It looks like you're going to be a really good candidate for dental implants, which is good. Now we can treat this in a number of different ways, but based on the information that Becky gave me, right? According to you, what's most important is your function. It's a 10 out of 10, aesthetics, 10 out of 10. It's really important for you to have something that's going to last long term or whatever. They utilize it as a methodology to justify why they're making the recommendation they're making, because clinically they're candidates for 3 or 4 different things. Does that make sense? But I don't have to sell why I'm making a recommendation for fixed, or say something like, you know, fixed is going to be the best option. No, it's only the best option if those things are important to them. What if they want something that's removable? What if they want something that's coming in and out? You know, what if they said, I want the best option that's the cheapest option, right? So it's not necessarily like what is the best clinically, it's what's the best fit for that particular patient. And I think that's kind of the next phase of what we all have to start working on, what we're going to work on at a lot of the power sessions moving forward, is what type of questions do you need to ask, and how do you get the patient to describe in detail the exact treatment that you're going to pitch? Does that make sense?
Lloyd has a question.
Yeah, Lloyd.
So what about when they've made a decision, they want the fixed option, which is the elite option, and they're like, we do the proceed, they're approved for proceed, but their monthly payment for the fixed option is too much. So they feel like they're settling for
a snap-on removal, because we only have two options, the removable snap-on and the fixed zirconia. So the only difference between the fixed zirconia is if they get acrylic, but that doesn't make a huge difference. Patients usually want this zirconia, but then they feel like, oh, I can really afford this, but that's not the best. You know what I mean? How
Yeah.
do you afford it so that the patient doesn't feel like they're getting something mediocre? You know, like they feel like I want it all or nothing. But then I
Again,
tell them,
yeah. Well, listen, when you're talking to them, it's really important to tell them. The main thing that I'm trying to drive home in that first 10 is that they're going to have options, and any of the options that are available are going to be considerably better than the current state of where they are, right? Everything is going to be a step forward in the right direction. And the only thing that makes no sense is to walk out of here and continue suffering the same way with nothing. That's what makes no sense, right? So all these options are going to be good, but also they're saying, hey, function a 10, aesthetics a 10, maintenance a 10, longevity a 10. I want the best of the best. And then you close and you go through the bundle and you give them the price, you show them the discount and then the price that they're going to pay. And if they say, I don't have that much money, right? You say what?
I say, then what is the budget that you're trying to stay in? Are we talking about a monthly payment or?
Okay. And then they say, yeah, if I could do monthly payments, that's good.
And then I ask them, you know, what monthly payment are you looking at? You know,
perfect. But see, that's where you missed on the example that you gave, right there, because you said that they said, I can't afford that payment. But we got to take that off the table to where that does not happen, right? So I don't offer financing until I present the price and they can't pay it. Once they can't pay it, then I ask them if I could take this dollar amount, and this is actually on my list to go through, right? Because this happened with Becky's consultation. But I'll say, well, listen, I would say out of 10 patients that move forward with a treatment like this, maybe 1 out of 10 will actually just cut a check, right? And just pay for the whole thing. 90% of patients are going to come in and they're going to take the dollar amount and spread it over many months or years, you know, to make it to where it's affordable and they can still do the best treatment without tying up all their cash flow, right? So would that help you if I could take this dollar amount and spread it out over time and give you some kind of a low affordable monthly payment? That way you wouldn't have to wait doing what's good. You could now, but just pay it over. And I gain agreement. They say, yes, that would help. I say, great. Listen, there's a lot of different financing options that we have available to us. Give me an idea of what type of payment would be easy for you so that I have a target to kind of shoot for and we can go from there. Because again, I don't want to give them an option that they can tell me that's too much.
Got it.
Right? That way, if I have a number, if they say, and you have to lead them, like what would work? 400 a month, 600 a month, 500, just kind of give me a ballpark of something that you could do that wouldn't be too much heartburn for you. It's critical to get that number, right? So they give me the number. That way, what's that?
What if they want to try to find, because sometimes they, you know, I go through the first 10 and they're, you know, the price comes up and they want to apply. And I ask them what a comfortable monthly payment is. And they tell me right out front, oh, you know, sometimes they tell me 150, which then I reroute them. But sometimes they'll tell me, oh, I want to stay within like $400, $500, which is not unrealistic.
No.
So, and I let them know, well, we can see what we can find under that price range. And then I do the application, but then they get like a really high interest rate. And the lowest monthly payment is like $700.
So you come in and you say, hey, good news is I was able to get you really, really close. Typically for this, it's going to be, you know, it can be $1,000, $1,200 a month, depending on what your credit score is. I was able to get this down to 700, right? So I got really, really close to where you are. It's all how you frame it. You know what I mean? You don't want to frame it as, well, it's going to be a little bit higher than what you told me. No, you want to frame it as good news and sell it to them there, right? And give them a perspective like, hey, this could be a lot. It could be a lot higher. Depending on what your credit situation is, it could be a lot higher. And I have this done without needing any tax documents. I've got this done without needing any documentation or collateral. We can literally get the whole thing done today and get you scheduled and get it taken care of. And it's easy. So this is really, really great news. You know, and you have to kind of sell the financing. You don't want to give them any cause for pause there. Don't give them anything to worry about, right? They're reading you guys the whole time. You know what I mean? They're reading you constantly, and they're reading the doctors constantly. And that's why we don't want to bring something up. I'm not going to, like, if I look and it's a high interest rate and that's pushing them over the payment, the last thing I'm going to do is bring up the interest rate.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to make light of that, right? Because listen, in the grand scheme of things, the most important thing is for them to get something done, right? They've been piecemealing their treatment for what, 2 decades? And how has that served them? It has not served them. So this is something where we can bring them back to a state of health, which is the most important thing. And they can pay it off early. And there's other things that they can do. They can liquidate other assets, but I need them to move forward with the financing now with me, because it's an unsecured loan. They don't need collateral. They don't need paperwork. And if somebody that needs financing walks out without that on the same day, you know, the odds of me getting them back are not good. So as long as you have a number, then you have a way to frame it. If they didn't give you $500 to begin with and you come back with 7, you're just coming with 7, and they might go, oh, geez, that's too high. I can't do that. But their real number's 5. It's too close.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you don't know it's 5, it would be different if it comes back at 7 and they told you 150.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't let them get away with 150. You would tell them 150 is not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not realistic, not even for a denture bill.
Exactly, but it allows you to pre-sell it and set an expectation for what that payment is going to be. Because if you can't come to an agreement on the number, why submit the financing in the first place?
Right.
Right. So always go in the right orders, because again, from a negotiating standpoint, we try to avoid, when we're negotiating, a take it or leave it situation. That's what I try to avoid. Take it or leave it. That's not good with negotiating. The only way that's good is if you know 100% that they need what you have and they cannot get it anywhere else. That's a take it or leave it. But if that's not the case, you do not want to have take it or leave it, which is kind of the way that it's going to be presented with a monthly payment. So always make sure that you guys are asking, number one, would it help if I could spread this out over months? And tell them most of the people do that. Okay. They say, yes, fine. What monthly payment are we looking for? I got a lot of options. Give me something to shoot for, but give me a target so I can get close right off the bat. Okay. They give you a number. Then you submit out to financing. What happens if the financing comes back and you need 30 grand and you got 10,000? What do you do?
I
Get out the sheet.
Yeah. And I let them know that I tell them, great news, you were approved $10,000, and now.
No, you submit out to another one immediately.
Oh, okay.
Immediately, right? You go to second source and then a third source. Like you see what the maximum credit available to them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me if I get all the available credit from one company or 3, it makes no difference to me whatsoever. If I have to submit to 3 different companies, then I'll submit to 3 different companies. Because if they get approved for 10, they're probably going to get approved at another one for something.
Yeah.
It's just the complete declines that you have the bigger issue with. But partial pay, make sure that you guys have 2 or 3 different places that you're submitting out to get full coverage. And I don't even mention the 10, right? I see it's 10,000. That's not enough. Pull up the other website and immediately start going through that. Submit it out. Okay, I got another 10. I need one more, right? Go to another one, submit it out. Bam, another 10. Congratulations. I was able to get you fully financed for the entire 30,000, all unsecured, which means we don't need any collateral. I don't need any tax documents or paperwork, nothing. You're good to go. Okay. We're going to have 3 different companies. I got you different lines of credit, but I have this whole thing is basically done and I got you fully financed. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, Becky.
So after my meeting with Veronica last time, and she was talking to me about presenting those two options instead of just one based on what the patient was wanting. So I came back and tried that again based on what the patient's needs and wants were, and presented them with zirconia full arch, and went over the bundling with them. He's like, well, this is way more than I expected. Do you have any other options that are more affordable? So then I go down to the acrylic.
Nope. What do you do? What do you do at that point? What do you need to know?
So I need to know his number. So
What's his definition of affordable? Because everyone has a different definition of what that is. Anytime they say, whoa, that's way too high, guys, that's easy because they're telling you what the issue is. They're being super transparent and upfront. So if that's too high, you need to know what is not high. What can you do? And let's start from there. And I use this line all the time. It works like crazy. I say, listen, there's what you want. Okay. There's what you need. And then there's what you can afford. All three are very, very important, because there's no sense in us talking about a treatment that's the best of the best. And yeah, you would love it, but if it's not financially feasible, what's the point in us going through it? Right. So if that's not feasible, you tell me what ballpark you're in, and let's just start from there, and I'll back into a treatment. All the treatments are going to be way better than where you are right now. Let's get something that you can afford. So talk to me and then use that's going to work. But you have to do that. If you don't do it, right? If they say that's too much, I can't afford it. And then we say, well, how about this? And they go, that's still too much. Well, how about this? That's too much. Like, what's not too much?
So just get a number from them and then
100%
use that. Okay. So I am giving them the option that they can always upgrade to that zirconia later on for that difference in price, you know, if that's, but I do tell them, hey, this is better than what you have now. So, you know, you could always start here and upgrade to the zirconia later on.
But you don't have to. Like, again, like if you're going to sell the treatment, that treatment needs to sound really good. You know, some say, listen, everything that we have as far as a full arch implant treatment, they're all amazing treatments. They're all amazing. It's just, there's just different levels of different benefits. There's pros and cons, right? The pro to the zirconia that we just went through are all the things that you already know. The con is the cost, right? So there's pros and cons, but all of them are amazing. They're amazing. So let's get you an amazing treatment that you can also afford. Does that sound reasonable? Let's do that. So give me a ballpark of where you want to be. 30 grand's too high, or 50 or whatever the number is. Give me an idea of where you would want to be to where it's easier, right? 30 grand, 40 grand, 20 grand, get me close. And I'm sure that we're going to have something for you, right? That way I don't have to go option by option blindly and get either a yes or a no, but I'm blind.
Okay.
I'm going to get it. It's like when I deal with doctors. If I'm on a sales call with a doctor, do you think I present them with a marketing plan with a budget? What if do you think I tell them, hey, you guys should be spending about, you guys need to be spending 10,000 a month or 5,000 a month or 15,000 a month? No, I don't do that. Why don't I do that? Because what if they say that's too much, right? What do I do? Say, listen, it doesn't matter what you spend. It only matters. The only thing that's important to me is that your spend and your budget accurately matches your goals, right? So if your goal is to generate X amount of arches, right? If you say I want to generate 10 arches and my budget's going to be $2,000, I'm going to tell you $2,000 and 10 arches don't match up. It's like somebody telling you, I want to spend $5,000 and I want to have full arch fixed zirconia.
Right.
Not going to happen, right? So for that amount of money, for your 5,000, you're in the denture category, which I'd rather have dentures than no teeth, right? But that's the ballpark you're in. It doesn't matter what dollar amount. It just matters, is it an accurate reflection of what your goals are, right? But if you don't ask them, function, aesthetics, maintenance, if you don't get them to describe the treatment, right, or the clinical outcome that they're looking for, if they don't describe it, we end up just it's almost like making offerings. Like, hey, we've got this treatment, this treatment, this treatment. Which one do you want? And it's not an ideal way to sell. You want them to sell themselves, right? That's what I want. I want them to, when the word comes, when they're speaking the words, it's theirs. If I'm speaking the words, they can contradict it. They can do all sorts of things. We can get in all kinds of debates, but it can get off track very quickly to where we start selling features and benefits of a treatment. And we shouldn't, right? We should go into it like I do with the doctor. My mind is completely open to any ideas. My main thing is I got to figure out where they want to go with the practice, right? What the goal is, where they are right now, right? And then I get a budget from them right up front. So I get them to tell me, what is your budget? How do I get a budget? Well, the budget reflects your goals. I walk them through that. And they say, okay, well then I guess for 10 arches, I can probably do 15,000. Okay, cool. Then all I'm doing is telling them how we're going to allocate $15,000 and it's done. I don't have to sell it to them. They already gave me the number. It was their number. I didn't say you need to do this, because if I say that, they can say, well, can you do better? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
But once they give me the number, they're done. It's the same thing with cars. It's the same thing with selling trees. It's all the same. There's absolutely no difference when I'm selling one of your doctors and you guys are selling your patients. No difference. The only difference is when I'm doing it, I understand there's going to be a negotiation, right? And I put myself in a position where it's not a take it or leave it. I position it as, hey, the options are infinite. It's not a question of how much this costs or that costs. It's a question of what is necessary to get you from point A to point B as quickly as possible and what makes sense. That's it. That's all it is. So if I don't have a good idea of where you are and I don't have a specific goals, then how do I even know what to recommend? I can't even make a recommendation, because then I'm just picking out things to recommend just for the sake of recommending them, which doesn't make any sense. And they get that. It's the same thing with patients. How do I make a recommendation if I don't know what is most important to you as it pertains to the clinical outcome? Because you could do any one of them. Right? You could do any one of these 3 or 4 or 5 different options, and they're all going to be way better than where you are. Which one is right for you might not be right for the next patient that comes in. So I'm going to customize it to what's most important to you. And sometimes when you do that, a patient will go like, geez, all these things are important, but honestly, I have to make sure it's affordable. The most important thing to me is like, what can I afford? I'll do any of them. It's just a matter of what I can afford. And sometimes that'll happen in the very first 10. And if they say that, we find out right now what is affordable. And if what's affordable means they have no cash, right? If they're like, well, I just don't have a lot of money, you're going to figure it out real quick that the entire sale is going to hinge on their ability to get financing. Then I don't wait for the second or the third 10. I'll submit out to financing right now, right in the first 10. Sometimes after the second 10, before we start the third 10, we'll say, hey, before we start going through, these different treatments, I understand, right? You're basically saying that you want to do the best, but everything depends on what you can secure financing for, correct? They say, yeah. Say, why don't we do this? Let's go ahead and submit out to financing, see what you get approved for, and then we'll come back to treatment, because any of these are going to be really, really good. But there's no sense in talking through a treatment if it's not affordable for you. And I'll go ahead and get them approved for financing even before I make the pitch, if I think 100% of the sale is contingent on their ability to secure financing. There's nothing wrong with that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Because you're going to approach it differently. If they don't get approved for anything, right? And you hit three different credit firms for credit, and they got denied at every single one of them. Then before you even make a recommendation or you even show them a bundle, you have to have a conversation about how much cash do they have, right? And if they don't have a lot of cash, what kind of assets do they have to liquidate? And that conversation has to be had. Why even make a recommendation at that point? You got to figure that out. So sometimes when you guys have them describing their treatment, sometimes to the patients, like they're in such a bad situation, they're like, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. It just, can I pay for it or not is really the question. That's where they are. So utilize that to pre-qualify them and go ahead and get them pre-approved. They're either pre-approved or they're not, but it's going to be hugely valuable to know that before you go through the bundle.
Right.
Right. And getting them to describe what they want is a critical component, guys. It's the basis of this entire sales process. That's the basis of it, is that no one's going to feel like we're trying to sell them anything, because we're saying anything is possible for you. You tell me what works. You tell me what you want, and I'll match the treatment up best to what's best going to give you that result.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No one will ever feel like you're pushing anything. They're never going to feel like you're being quote unquote salesy, or you know how people get when they're selling. Oh, this one's the best for these reasons. It's got da 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 da. They start listing off features and benefits and everything. That just doesn't work. You know, it just doesn't work
I'm
well.
so sorry. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, good. How are you doing today?
What's up? Did you have a question?
Working today.
Somebody's on. I don't know.
Dr. Hanawi? Dr. Hanawi will be here tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Lloyd. Bam, I got it. Okay, cool. But that is the basis of this entire sales process. And that's why when I speak at these other meetings, I try to tell them that people that know what they're doing and they're sophisticated, it's the highest level of communication and customer service that you can get, because you're never going to put a patient in a position of take it or leave it, or, hey, this is what you need to do. And if you don't do this, all these bad things are going to happen to you, you know? And I don't want to ever position one treatment as head and shoulders above the other one, because they're all head and shoulders above the patient's current situation. That's the thing to understand. You can't compare one treatment to the next treatment necessarily. You have to compare all the treatments to their current situation, right? In their current situation, dealing with no teeth, can't smile, can't do anything, man, a snap-in denture, an overdenture looks really good to that person right about now. And I don't want to make them feel like they're getting second best, or they're getting something that's not good. It's kind of like a consolation prize. So right from the beginning, I tell them all of these are amazing options. We don't do anything that's not good. There are levels to it and pros and cons, but we're not going to do anything just to do it. All of these options are amazing. All of them that include implants are amazing, and they're all going to put you in a significantly better position. And there's no right choice and no wrong choice here. Everyone makes different choices for what is going to be best for them. Right. And that's why it's important for me to understand exactly what kind of clinical outcome you want. For instance, how important is function to you? Scale 1 to 10 and define it. That's how you sell it. And if you don't, you're going to wind up at the close and you're going to have 3 options or 2 options, and it's clumsy. It's a clumsy close, because you got to go through a bundle and then close, but you're semi-closing, right? Because you're not done yet. Then you got to go through another bundle and you got to semi-close, and you're letting the patient do all of these calculations on their own, which is like terrifying. I don't want them to do any of these calculations, right? They have to thoroughly understand that the reason why I'm recommending this is only because of what they've told me. That's it. And if they tell me something different, this recommendation will change, and it can change. Right? If this matches everything they told me and I make the recommendation, but it turns out to be more than they can afford, then I tell them, I use that line. I say, there's what you need, there's what you want, and there's what you can afford. No sense in going and talking all something if it's not feasible. Let's get something that's feasible. Remember, every option that we have is going to be way better than where you are. So tell me what you can afford. And the whole thing is really smooth. And guys, you stay in the driver's seat for the entire consultation. It's never a take it or leave it. You never put yourself in a position where they can directly contradict you, right? Because the whole damn thing was their idea. That's where you want to be. You don't want to make recommendations blindly. I want them to know, hey, this treatment plan was my whole idea. That's what the doctors feel with me. They feel like they were an instrumental part in creating their marketing plan. I ask them, how confident are you in your team and their ability to handle 100 leads a month or 200 leads a month and do it efficiently? Okay, how confident are you in your ability to do a lot of consultations, right, in a short amount of time and close at a high percentage? You know, how confident are you in your ability to close price shoppers and handle somebody that comes in to negotiate and wants to talk about money? How confident are you? How confident are you in this, that, the other, blah, blah, blah. Based on their answers, I make the proposal. Simple as that. And that's why the proposals are different, because sometimes I get different answers. I don't have it. It's not like I don't have a preconceived idea of what I'm going to sell anybody ever. That's critical, because once you do, now it's not a consultative type sell anymore. Now you're like pitching a product, and it's not as good. They don't open up. I want them to feel like they created the treatment plan. They feel like this treatment plan was created specifically for them, and nothing's off the table with you. You're open to any suggestion. You don't have any bias towards one procedure versus another. If you present in a way, you're like, all right, this is implant supported denture, and this is your fix all on four. Implant supported denture, a lot of people don't like them. There's reline issues. They don't look as good, blah, blah. And this one is da, 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 da. You have a clear and obvious bias towards one. So you can't roll it back anymore, not and be real. You know what I'm saying? Really, really, really hard to do that. So I think if there's one area that's going to have the biggest ripple effect for everybody, and this is what we're going to work on at the next power session, is to get better at getting the patient to describe what it is that they want, and making sure the patient is making the connection that the only reason I'm making this recommendation is based on what you told me you wanted. If you guys can get there, you're never going to have a situation where you find yourself attempting to close on 2 different things or 3 different things. It just makes it much more complicated for the patient, and you can't read their mind. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to read their mind. I want them to tell me everything that they're thinking. That's why your questions and how you frame is so important, right? If I'm asking the right questions and they're describing what it is that they want, a lot of times they're going to tip their hand. If money's the biggest thing, they'll tip their hand. Say, yeah, I want this, I want this, I want this. I'm just kind of don't know what I can really afford. Bam. Okay, well, let's talk about that. You know, because everybody wants the best, but you also have to be able to pay for it as well. So what can you afford? Right? And you just go right down. By the time you get to the close, everything has already been agreed. Everything. Now it's just a matter of showing them that they're getting a great deal. They've already agreed 100% on the treatment. I don't have to sell them the treatment when we close. The only purpose for going through the bundle, it's not to close the treatment. Treatment should be closed. If they're not emphatically in agreement that that is the treatment they want and that gives them everything that they want and need, then we missed it, right? Only reason I go through the bundle is to show them that they're paying below retail. That's it. So that they don't need to get a second opinion on price. Why do you need to get a second opinion on price if you see that you're getting a phenomenal deal? That's the only reason I go through it. But the treatment, you're going to have a really good idea after the first 10 minutes what the treatment is going to be. You're going to give that information to the doctor. Doctor's going to confirm they're a candidate and then reconfirm the things that are most important to them. And based on those things, he or her are going to make a primary recommendation to the patient. And they're going to confirm that that's going to give them everything that they want. And they need to get the patient's confirmation on that as well. Do you agree? Does this sound like gives you everything you want? I think based on what you've said, this is 100% what I would do. This is going to give you this, 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 and this, and this. And you're a great candidate for it. I think you're going to have a beautiful result. So by the time you get to the close, there's no discussion of which option you're going to do. Which option you're going to do has already been discussed and agreed upon. Now I show them they're getting a great deal and you're done. Someone have a question? Oh, okay. Guys, any questions on that? Are you guys with me? You on the same page there?
Yeah, and Bart, this is Lisa. I want to send you a consult. I already spoke to Veronica about this one, and I think it was a comedy show. It was actually very interesting because the patient already knew everything. So every time we were trying to say everything, he's like, no, I know. Like he would interrupt every 5 seconds. I would love to hear your feedback on what you would have done. In that consult, he was just, I mean, he came in for an implant today. But we were like, do we even want to see him?
Well, yeah, for sure. Because sometimes I'm like, sometimes it's like, listen, it sounds like you are very well read on this. Sounds like you know exactly what you're looking for. So you just tell me what it is that you're looking for. Sounds like you know exactly what treatment, you know what price you want. Just tell me what you're looking for. Let's just go directly to it.
Yeah. And that's what I said to him. Let's just cut the chase. I'm not going to educate you because you know it. That's what I said. I was like, okay, you know it. So you tell me, what am I putting together for you?
Exactly. And sometimes you can turn those patients around because, again, it's the same thing with doctors, right? Sometimes they'll call in, they'll be seeing this. They think they know, but they don't. You know what I mean? But I can't tell them you don't know what you're talking about, right? But what I can do is ask them clarifying questions. And when they don't know the answers to it, then they have to ask me to clarify and they start to learn real quick. Oh, I'm not quite as certain as I thought I was, right? With somebody telling all on four, oh yeah, well, I want this, 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 and this. And you say, well, I mean, as far as all on four goes, I mean, there's a lot of practices. When they talk about all on four, they only do it one way and they only have one price. But here we have all on four at 3 or 4 different ways that we can do it with different price points. I mean, when you were at the other practices, did you get all on four for one way with one price, or did they give you multiple different ways to do all on four? And you know what they're going to think in their head? They're going to go, hold on, there's more than one way. And again, you're in the driver's seat, right? Because they did, I guarantee you, they have not heard that. I guarantee it, right? No one's going to say that to them. They don't think that way. That's just not how doctors and practices think about this. They think all on four fixed. They have one way to do it, you know, and sometimes that's with a hybrid, and sometimes it's with zirconia, sometimes nanoceramic, whatever it is, they kind of have their favorite way they do it, and that's it, you know? So when all of a sudden you say all on four can be done 2, 3, 4 ways, right? It just depends on what you want. They're all on four. That's kind of what, that's the big misconception out there. But did they give you one price for all on four or 3 or 4 different options for all on four? Then they're going to go, hold on, there's more than one. And I get back, you know, in the driver's seat, and then I can say, yes, there's more than one. Of course, half these doctors you get all on four, they're all going to say all on four, and every single one of them does it differently. Every single one. Some are using 4 implants, some are using 5, some are using 6. Some are using teeth made out of different material. They use different protocols. Some are fully guided, some are not fully guided, all kinds of different ways to do it. People just don't know that or understand it. So why don't you do this? Because we don't do it one way. We have different ways to do it for people with different budgets and people that want different things. So talk to me a little bit about the things that are most important to you in terms of a clinical outcome: function, aesthetics, maintenance, money, cost, longevity, all of these things. And let me match up something that's going to give you everything that you want at the price that you want. What are they going to say to that? No. That's going to appeal to that person that you're describing immediately, because they're already telling you, I already know all this stuff, cut to the chase, but you don't know what chase they want to cut to. I don't know what price they're looking for, and they haven't given me any details about all on four. They're just rushing me through. So fine, if you want to rush through the process, let's do it. But you still got to have a way to disturb their complacency and gain the authority. Does that make sense? Same thing when doctors tell me, oh yeah, you know, I've got a couple different quotes for PPC. What do you charge? And this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I do exactly what I just told you is what I do. Again, you're always trying to get back to the point where don't let them Say, what options do you have? Tell me everything you got. And then you guys end up just pitching. They're like, yeah, no, contradict this, think that, blah, blah. I don't play that game, right? We're not going to play that game. I'm not going to sit here and go through a product list with you, dude. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to say that, but what I'm going to say is that, what do I have? I have everything. It's not a question of what I have, right? It's a question of, what do you want? What is your expectations? That's what I need to know. If I know what your expectations are in the end and where you are now, then I can come up with something. I don't have things off the rack that I just give to everybody. Every practice is different with different needs and expectations. And we have to work together to solve the problem and get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. Does that make sense? So let's start here. Bam. And I slap them, right? And take control of the conversation, but get back to them telling me about what it is that they want. Because now I use their words and they can't contradict themselves. That's the key here. That's the basis for the entire, this entire style. That's the basis. That's the premise of it, is that it's their words, not mine. I'm not saying, hey, I've got 4 different options. Here are the pros and cons. Here's what I think is the best. Doesn't matter what I think is the best. They have to believe it's the best. And instead of me assuming or trying to sell them on the fact that it's the best through features and benefits, I just ask them what is ideal for them. That's it. It's really, really, really easy, but it's also very easy to get sucked in to a situation where you guys start pitching different options. And now they have something to say yes or no to. And if they say no, sometimes they don't give you a lot of context. And then if they're like, well, I'm not sure about this one or that one, then what do? You start putting more emphasis on one or the other. So you start kind of selling fixed. Well, this is the best one because of these reasons. Boom, 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 boom. Now you look biased towards fixed. When really any of them are good. They're all really good. You think about dentistry in the 70s, man. I mean, an implants, the way we do implants supported over dentures technology we have right now compared to how it was 20, 30 years ago, my gosh, everything is really good. What makes you different is that you're open-minded. What makes you different is that you have multiple ways to solve problems. And you're different because you're willing to think outside of the box to get that patient moving in the right direction and put them in a better situation. Anything that puts them in a better situation is a win as far as you're concerned. Anything. The lose is they leave and do nothing. Make sense? Nina, you have a question?
Did you have a question?
Well, I don't know. I have like a thought.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
No, go ahead.
I guess I just wanted to confirm, like, when are we doing, because my understanding of the first 10 is that you ask them, right, where are they now? Where do they want to go? And then you kind of go into a very quick, how much do they know? Like, do you know what an implant is, right? And then I believe in that same verbiage, it says that's when you quickly review, hey, there's different options at different prices, each with different pros and cons. There's the removable, there's the semi-removable, and there's the fixed. Do you have any preference one way or the other?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I feel like at that point, you kind of are giving the different options. So I just want to make sure, like, I understand, when do I talk to them about, I don't know.
When you talk to them about what? The function, aesthetics, maintenance?
Because you said you don't go through all the options with them.
No, so in the first 10, you're getting clear on what their pain points are, right? What their motivating factor is. And then you go right into creating the vision, find out what's most important to them. That's when you're asking about function, aesthetics, maintenance, all of those things. The only reason in the first 10 why we go through some of the different options and give them a Cliff Notes version is because we're fishing for a price objection. That's all we're doing. Because sometimes when you go through that part and say, listen, I'm going to give you a Cliff Notes version so that you understand what the doctor's saying, depending on whatever recommendations that they make. And it looks like you could be a candidate for any of these. Now, in the event that you're dealing with somebody that's a second or third opinion and they already know this stuff, I don't go through it.
Yeah.
I don't go through it because I'm going to ask them questions and I'm just going to get down to one. But if you have somebody where it's their first appointment. They don't know what all of the options are and they're brand new. Then you want to go through and give them just a little bit of understanding so that the doctor doesn't kind of blow them away. Just because what I found is a lot of times that patients aren't comfortable asking the doctor clarifying questions when it comes to the treatment. Sometimes they feel like, geez, is this a dumb question? Should I know this? Should I not know this? You know, so they kind of just stay a little bit quiet with them. So you're going through that pretty quick, but before you get to the patient education, that's when you want to ask them function, aesthetic, maintenance, all those things. And we need to make sure that you guys have the updated first 10 too. Veronica, we got to make sure that they have the new one. Because we've made some recent adjustments.
The conference last time, like the packet that I have, like there's differences in that.
Oh,
And it's
great.
awesome. Yeah.
Great. I'm just kidding.
Send it to us again. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we've
Finally memorizes after 3 years, Bart.
no, I didn't change it that much. I didn't. I promise you, I didn't change it that much. I added in the function, aesthetics, maintenance, because typically it's what the doctor will go through. But again, we learn different ways to streamline this by watching the videos, you know, and by watching the videos to see, all right, what is resonating, what's not, what are they grasping, what are they not grasping? And again, right now we're to the point where a lot of people have this like 70% down, but I think that 90 to 95% of all of the missteps that are occurring because the patient is not describing the treatment that they want. They're not describing the clinical outcome of the treatment, and they're not making that connection. So we're still getting to the point where we have 2 or 3 different treatment plans at the close, which is not ideal. We're still to the point at the second 10 where the doctor's not making one emphatic, confident, primary recommendation, primary treatment plan. We're just not getting there. And if you're not getting there, we're still getting a lot of, let me think about it. And we're just kind of going into it blind. So I think that if we can do a better job of creating the vision and getting the patient to verbalize those things, and then handling, again, hey, I want the best. I want 10 out of 10, but I just don't know what I can afford, right? I'm in here to kind of figure out what I can do. There's what I want, but there's what I don't know. Like, is this $50,000? Is it $10,000? Like, I have to be able to actually afford the treatment. You know, you want to get to that point of speaking to them, and you want to have a good plan of action before you make the pitch. If they say, I got to know if I can afford it, I don't want to pitch something without knowing that number is agreed upon. Why do that? Why do that? It's just like me with the doctor. I don't just make a pitch of $20,000 a month in marketing or $5,000. I don't just pull that number out of thin air. I get them to agree on the number before I put the proposal together. They say, well, can you put me a proposal and make some recommendations? I'm like, well, I could, but you want to talk about a colossal waste of time, right? Because how do I know? I mean, a proposal of $30,000 a month that's designed to get 20 arches or 25 arches a month looks a lot different than a proposal for 5 a month. You have to get me in the ballpark for what you want to spend to where I can even make a proposal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Same exact thing with the patient. Same exact thing selling a car. You're not going to have a conversation about where they want to be before you go into, I mean, you're going to have that conversation. So I think as long as we can anchor everything on what they want, and they see that the only reason we're making the treatment recommendation is based on their words, that's number one to keep in your mind. Always get there. And number 2 is it's one treatment recommendation. Okay. And then we're going to have no problem rolling back because we can say, hey, listen, if this is too much heartburn, if this is something you can't afford, right? Would it help if I could take this dollar amount and spread it out over a period of time? If they're like, no, it's just too much money. It's freaking 50 grand. I don't care if you spread it out 2 lifetimes. I can't pay for that. Okay, no problem. Remember, we're only to this recommendation because it gives you the function, aesthetic, maintenance, longevity that you're looking for. Having said that, like I told you at the beginning, all these treatment options are going to be amazing. And we have different options at different budgets. So instead of going through every possible option, I understand the 30,000 or the 50,000 is too much. Why don't you tell me what ballpark you want to be in, and then we'll match it up and I'll get you something that's going to be fabulous as well, but also something you can afford. Does that sound fair? Okay, let's do that. So you tell me where you want to be. If you guys get to that point, it's really easy, but one little misstep in the process where you do something out of order or out of sequence, it can get clumsy, right? That's where the practice, but don't forget the entire, the 10,000 foot view here, right? Is that I don't push the treatment. The patient is going to describe their own treatment. And then there's no option that I'm not willing to explore, absolutely none. And every option we have is unbelievable. And it is what it is. They're different, but it's every single option is great value. Makes sense?
Bart, I have a question.
Yes.
So in one of our locations in San Francisco, we're using Proceed. We've had here, I believe, about 6 to 8 leads here. And of course, we're going through the steps of, you know, what is your budget? What can you afford? What can you put down? Working with them before leading them with our lenders. The issue we're having is, you know, money's tight and they can't quite give us a budget to work with sometimes. But when we offer them, you know, once they see the total cost and we offer them especially Proceed, a majority except one have been declined with being offered with Proceed. And I don't know what is another option or what verbiage can we use for those cases where, you know, they're not being approved with their lenders, you know, it's out of their budget to do the treatment, you know, we're trying to do it like in phases or we're trying to do something. But what do you recommend in that case where, you know, most of all our leads are coming, you know, like what do you recommend? Mm-hmm.
Number one, you got to have more than 6 opportunities, right? So the first thing, right, is don't be alarmed because 6 is nothing, right? Now, right, 60 and none of them got approved. That's a different story, right? 60 consultate, but 6 is just, it's such a low number. You could have 6 people come in and they, you know, they've got a 5 credit score, okay? But you also want to make sure that you don't have just one financing option. Okay. So if you apply and they don't get declined, you apply somewhere else and you apply somewhere else. Have at least 2 or 3 options. Okay. To put them through to make sure. Okay. If someone gets declined 3 different places, right, 100% declined, they're probably not going to get approved at any other traditional type of loan either, unless it's like a equity line or something. Mm-hmm. Okay. So have more than one option and make sure, we want to make sure that, that we're not bringing up the price before they are also, you know, okay. But in your situation, I wouldn't worry about it because you're at 6 consultations. You need a lot more than that. Okay. You know what I mean? So if you're like just getting started, you know, we've got to be doing, definitely you're doing more than 6 a month, you know, and if you're not, then we have to look at how many leads you're getting. And if you're getting a lot of leads, but you're not getting a lot of consultations, then we address the lead management. Right. And if you're just not getting a lot of leads, then we have to address the marketing. It's either one of those two, but you've got to get more opportunities because in this game that we're in, this full arch game, you're going to have a high percentage of patients that you're going to have to triage through that don't have any money, and don't have any credit. Mm-hmm. So look at the leads and do you have a lot of leads? If you do, then training over the phone and lead management. If you don't, then you speak with your account manager and make some adjustments to the marketing.
So how do we deal with leads so on our portal, it says we have over 150 leads and we've only been able between our 2 locations have been able to book, let's say less than 20 for both offices. We've called, we've texted, we've emailed, but a lot of these leads are not returning back, you know, our phone calls or text message. And we've, you know, since we've started, what's another way do you recommend on how we try to get a hold of these leads when they're not responding back to us?
Look, with the leads, 2 days goes by, you know, tough, you know, because what's happening, you guys wouldn't believe this, but what do you think our busiest time of generating leads for our doctors are? Time of the day. What time? What hours do you think we generate the most amount of leads?
Evenings and middle of the night.
Middle of the friggin' night.
Yeah, my phone's dinging all night long.
It's like 11 p.m. to like 4 a.m. And you know what's happening? They're putting in the inquiries at 5 or 6 different practices, at least, right? So it's always the first one, and you're not trying to book them. I think, again, this is kind of like a whole nother training here, but I'll give you a little bit on this, right? In terms of what your goal for lead management, you have to make this real clear with whoever your patient advocate is, because you guys are a team. Your goal is not to book them at first. Your goal is to engage in dialogue. That's your goal, right? So I'm not asking, hey, when you want to schedule an appointment, blah, blah, blah. It's like, hey, saw your evaluation. You look like a really good candidate. Got a minute to chat, right? Send it. Then send another one. Hey, I've got 10 minutes, at 2 o'clock. Does that work? They don't respond. What about after 5? Click, ding, 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 right? But there's a casual tone to it. And your goal is just to engage and get them to talk to you. Once they're talking to you, now you can do what you need to do, but engagement, that's the first goal. And sometimes the responses, when we're managing the leads, there's no selling to it. And believe me, as soon as the lead comes in, the sales process starts. And if it's this like Debbie, the Time Life operator stuff, super corporate, super formal, it doesn't work well. You know what I mean? You got to get them to respond. So using things like, got a sec, got a minute. Hey, I can give you a call whenever you're free. I've got 10 minutes at 1 o'clock. Does that work? When do you go on lunch? How late do you work today? Any of that stuff, you can just get once you get one little response, then you got them. But you have to kind of, you have to work at that, and you have to engage with them the same day that they come in. And that's all through text. That's all about text messaging. It's not the phone calls. They almost never answer them. That's very rare. They don't answer numbers they don't know. Cool. There's another one.
Sandra, but I think they're at the same practice.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. All right, guys. Any other questions?
I have one quick question.
I had a question.
Okay.
Who wants to go first? I'll go first. So my question is, if someone gives a low score on the function, aesthetics, or maintenance, do you then, let's say, for example, they give a 3 for aesthetics, but a 10 for function and maintenance, would you still select the treatment plan that exactly aligns with that, even if they don't bring up price or money? Would you select the lowest tier treatment plan for aesthetics, or would you offer the option that, hey, I know you said aesthetics is not important, but we have these options as well?
Well, why would somebody give you that answer, right? So if someone says, hey, it's a 10 for function and a 3 in aesthetics, why do you think they're saying a 10 and a 3? Because there's a big difference. Why do you think they're saying that?
Most likely because the function is the most important part, because they haven't been able to do what they want to do and they don't really care how it looks. They just want to eat. Right.
And they're also thinking in their mind, right, that I can save some money on the aesthetics. If I'm going to, if there's a trade-off, I don't want to trade anything on function. I'd rather trade it off with aesthetics. And that's why having a fixed option, you've got your fixed zirconia and then you've got your fixed acrylic. You know what I mean? Your fixed acrylic or your fixed, 3D printed prosthetic, whatever you have, that's a level down. If they want a 10 out of 10 function, typically you're going fixed, right? But it's what option do you have aesthetics wise, right? That's going to save them some money. And that's how I would position it. I'd say, listen, 10 out of 10 in function, you definitely don't want something that snaps in and out, right? You want something as stable as possible because you want it to feel as realistic as it can possibly feel, almost like having your natural teeth back, right? Okay. You don't want teeth that are mobile. Okay. So we're looking at fixed. When it comes to fixed, if aesthetics aren't, if it's a 3 out of 10, we have 2 different aesthetic options available. What I would recommend is this one, because it's going to save you some money on the aesthetics. The good news is it still has really, really good aesthetics. It's just not quite as good as zirconia, but if that's a trade-off, you can still get one level down and still save a lot of money there, you know? And I'll pitch it again to where it's like, I'm actually listening to them. Because if I ask them those questions and then I pitch something that disagrees with what they told me with no context, then they're going to think I'm asking the questions just to ask them. I'm not actually using the information. The information's not influencing my recommendation, which we don't want. I want them to see that it is, and I can provide kind of like my reasoning behind what the recommendation is.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Cool. And sometimes you'll have them say, hey, I want the best. I want 10 out of 10 for everything at the cheapest freaking dollar amount possible. Sometimes they'll say that. Sometimes be like, well, as good as I could get for least amount of money. I say, okay. So as far as your 1 to 10 function, aesthetics, and maintenance, 1 to 10 in terms of money, it's a 10. Money's the most important thing here. Any of them are good. It's just what you can afford. Is that what you're telling me? Yep. Okay. Well, let's talk about that. And then we can kind of back into the treatment, right? No sense spending an hour talking about a treatment that you can't afford, right? Oh, right. Absolutely. Okay. So give me an idea. Bam. And we're right into that seamlessly. You guys see how smooth it goes? It goes really smooth when you get it, when you get this down. It's like, man, you stay in control of it the whole time and you just seamlessly move from one thing to another, but we're always heading directly towards the close. We're never off track. They're never pacing and leading me. They're never throwing me off on a tangent. I always get it. I'm always going to get it back because I anchor on what they want and I'm going to ask the questions. If they give me an idea about cost or affordability, or they give me a reason to triage, right? Then I'll say, all these are options, but what's the point in talking about something if you can't afford it, right? So let's talk about what you can afford. Affordability is a big part of this. Give me an idea. And now I got that. They say, well, I can't afford anything unless I can get it financed. Okay, let's see what we can get you pre-approved for. What type of payment would be easiest? Well, I don't know. Well, give me something to shoot for. $300, $400, $500. Well, what's easy? Oh, I could do 400. Okay, let's see. Bam. And I'm going through, I'm getting them pre-approved within 5 minutes of the consultation. And nothing seems out of the ordinary, but I'm going to do that because if they don't have any money and then they're not approved for anything, why am I going to go take a CT scan and go visit with a doctor? Makes sense? Once you guys get it down, you got it. But if you miss the part about them describing it, you guys are just going to go through the motions and you're going to talk about removable and give them information. You're going to talk about fixed and give them information. And then you're just going to make a blind recommendation about fixed zirconia. That's what's going to happen. That's their experience at all the other practices too. So if you do it the way I'm telling you, it's a totally different experience that these patients are not used to it. And they're never going to get pitched something that they didn't say they wanted. So there's nothing to contradict. And if it doesn't work, cool. We have all of these other amazing solutions. So this doesn't work. Now you tell me what will work financially and you let me fix that. So tell me what will work. You see, there's no point where there's going to be a snag with me where we're contradicting each other, where we're at odds here. Never going to happen. Makes sense?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I tried that with one of the patients. I tried it a few times. There was this one patient. I said, you know, how much can you afford a month? Is it 200, 300, 400? You know, I was giving all those options. And the patient was like, did not give me a number and said, I really don't have an idea. How many times you ask me, I don't have an idea until you tell me how much would it cost me. Like he did not like, and of course I lost the patient there. So how do I respond to that?
Well, when you're getting a budget, you have to kind of have, no matter if you're getting a budget or asking them what type of monthly payment's going to work, you have to have a line of reasoning that makes sense for you asking that question, right? So what I tell them is, listen, when it comes to financing options, I have a lot of different companies and a lot of different options that I can pull from that can give you different terms, right? In order to get you at different different monthly payments, right? There's a lot of different options to go by. Instead of me going through every single one, what's going to be a lot easier, if you can give me a target to shoot from, again, I can't guarantee I'm going to hit it exactly, but if you can get me in the ballpark of a target of something that's easy for you, right? Like I can do 300 a month or 500 a month, 400 a month. It's going to save us both a lot of time here. And I can go straight in and try to get that dollar amount approved. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So just kind of get close. What is it, 300, 400, 200, right? When I say it like that, it makes total sense, right? If I don't, and I just ask them, well, give me an idea of what your budget is, it can blow their mind because they're not expecting it. And the options are limitless, right? There's an infinite amount of numbers, okay, that for them to choose from. So it's too big. And when they're not expecting it, now they're thinking like, what should I say? I don't want to give them a number that's too high, because what if I give them a number that's really high and then they have options that are lower than that? They're not going to give me those lower options because I already gave them the higher one. And, you know, they're trying to figure out what's the lowest they can get away with. You know what I mean? And same thing with trying to get a budget. Oh, that's too high. Okay, well, what's your budget? That's not going to get an answer, right? I have to give them a reason that makes logical sense for them to give me the budget. And my reason is that we have a lot of different treatment options. Instead of going through every single one and every single pro and con, why don't you tell me where you're looking to be? Just ballpark it. And then I'll just talk about the treatment that's closest to that. And we can get somewhere. There's no sense in spending another 30 minutes or 45 minutes talking about a treatment that in the end you can't afford, right? Okay, so let's not do that. I'll save you a bunch of time. Where do you want to be? I'm not going to hold you to it, but get me close. So a lot of it is just the context, right? It could take me 15 to 20 seconds to ask that question. What's your budget? It might be a 20-second question because I'm giving them context and I'm giving them the answer within the question as well. The more generic that question is, the worse your results are going to be in terms of getting them to respond. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Okay, awesome. Hey, sorry guys that I went a little bit late. Don't let me cut in any of your consultations. Close some of these arches and make sure you get on the schedule to come in for the power session. Come hang out in Clearwater. We got good weather this time of year. Let's go. Go close them. See you guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.